I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone. Not my wife, not my priest, not the men I served with, the ones still living, which are not many. I am telling you because I am old now and tired, and the keeping of it has cost me more than I can afford to keep paying. I was 23 years old in the autumn of 1876. Corporal, 7th Cavalry, though by then the 7th was still being rebuilt after Little Bighorn that summer. They folded what was left of us into a provisional unit, mixed regiment, names I did not know, faces I would never seen before. That is important. Remember that. None of us knew each other well. We had not had time to learn each other's habits, each other's tells. We were camped outside of Billings when the orders came down. Midnight, that was the first wrong thing. Cavalry orders that come at midnight are not routine orders. Every man in that camp understood that without being told. You feel it in the air, the way you feel weather coming, something tightening. Sergeant Ulrich woke us himself, which he never did, and his face in the lantern light was the face of a man who had already decided something and made peace with the decision. I have thought about that look many times since. He knew what we were riding toward. I am certain of it now. We rode hard, 15 miles, maybe a little more, northwest into the dark. The night was cold, the way Montana nights get cold in October. The kind that finds gaps in your coat you did not know were there. I remember the sound of the horses on the frozen ground. That particular sound. I have not been able to explain why that is the detail that comes back sharpest, but it does, every time. Hooves on ground that has not fully thawed since September. Nobody spoke. That was the second wrong thing. Cavalrymen ride together, you talk. You complain about the cold, about your saddle sores, about the cook's coffee, about home. 15 men on a midnight ride, and there was nothing. Just hooves, just breath turning to mist. Just the dark and the stars and the sound of us moving through the night, like something that did not want to announce itself. I asked Aldrich once what we were heading toward. He said a trading post. Garrison trouble. I asked what kind of trouble. He did not answer. The trading post was called Harker's, though I did not know the name until afterward. It sat in a shallow valley between two ridgelines, close to the base of a range that ran northeast toward what the maps called unorganized territory, mining country. A few small operations have pushed up into those hills in the years after the war, mostly independent men looking to find silver or gold before the big companies moved in. Harkers supplied them. Provisions, equipment, correspondence. A garrison of 18 soldiers had been stationed there the previous spring to keep peace between the miners and the Crow, who still moved through that territory seasonally. We smelled it before we saw it. Not smoke, not yet. Something else. I have spent 40 years trying to find the right word for that smell, and I have not found it. Not rot, exactly. Not chemical. Closer to, the smell of a room that has not had its windows opened in a very long time. A sealed smell. The smell of air that has been breathed too many times by too many things. The valley opened up ahead of us, and I saw the lights, not lantern light, too many, too bright, arranged in a perimeter, torches, I understood, as we got closer. Dozens of them planted in the ground in a wide ring around the trading post, and between the torches, soldiers, standing at intervals, facing inward, facing the building, and behind them, on horseback, at the top of the near ridge, officers, 6 or 7 of them. I could not count precisely in the dark. The way they sat their horses, they were watching, just watching, still as statues, Aldrich halted us at the edge of the torchlight ring and rode forward to speak with the captain I did not recognize. They were too far for me to hear. The conversation was brief. Aldrich came back with an expression I can only describe as confirmation of something he had already feared. He told us to dismount, leave our horses at first, Jack to 50. The rest of us were to take up positions facing the post's main doors. I said, "Sergeant, what are orders if the doors open?" He looked at me. Not through me, not past me, directly at me. For a long moment he said, "Do not let I want you to understand the size of what he said. Do not let anyone out." Those were soldiers in there. 18 men of the United States Army. Men who had signed the same papers I would signed, taken the same oath, drilled on the same parade grounds. Men who ate government rations and wore government blue, and had names recorded in ledgers in Washington, D.C. Do not let anyone out. I took my position at the doors. The post was a substantial structure for that territory, built for permanence, not just function. Heavy timber walls, a roof that could bear snow load, shuttered windows. The kind of construction that says someone expected to stay. The main doors were wide enough for a loaded freight wagon to pass through. Solid wood, iron banded. They were closed. And from inside, nothing. No sound, no movement, no light. Around the edges of the shutters, 18 men. Not sleeping, because the officers on the ridge had not come all this way in the middle of the night to watch men sleep. Not fighting, because there was no sound of fighting. Just closed doors and dark windows, and silence coming out of that building where way cold comes to a cave. It was Private Reese who said it first, very quietly, to the man next to him, which was me. He said, "You hear that?" I said, "I do not hear anything." He said, "That is what I mean." We stood there for what I believe was close to an hour, maybe longer. Time works differently when you are standing in torchlight at midnight, in front of a silent building, holding a rifle you have been told you might have to use on the men inside. The cold I would barely noticed on the ride started, finding me then. I remember my hands on the rifle stock, and the way the grain of the wood felt under my fingers, and how I concentrated on that feeling, because concentrating on small physical things kept me from thinking about the larger questions I did not have answers to. At some point, a captain came up from behind us and told us to step back from the doors, 50 yards, come around to the sides of the building. I did not understand until I saw the men coming with the oil. Let me stop here. Let me just sit with that sentence for a moment, because even now, even at my age, all the year between me and that night, the word hits me the same way it did then. The men coming with the oil. They moved along the base of the walls efficiently, without hesitation, without discussion. They knew exactly what they were doing. This was not improvised. This was a procedure that had been thought through ahead of time by people above my rank, above any rank I would ever personally interacted with. The oil went along the base of the walls, along the foundation timbers, around the corners. I looked up at the ridge. The officers on horseback had not moved. The captain came to each of us individually, quietly. He said that what was happening here tonight would not be discussed. He said that the garrison inside had been exposed to something. He said that the garrison was no longer able to make decisions for themselves. He said that what was happening was authorized at the highest level and was the only viable course of action to prevent a larger harm. He said, "If the doors open, you will do your duty." I nodded, because I did not know what else to do. I think we all nodded. Nobody spoke. I looked at the men around me in the torchlight and saw the same thing in each of their faces, a kind of stillness that was not calm. The stillness of a man who has received information he does not know how to process, and so set it aside temporarily. The fire started at the northeast corner. I know how that sounds. I know what you are thinking, because I thought it too. And I've thought it every day for 43 years. But here is what happened, and I need you to understand this part very carefully. The doors did not open. You need to sit with that. If you put 18 men in a burning building, those men will come to the doors. That is not courage, or cowardness, or strength, or weakness. That is what a human body does when the air gets hot, and the smoke comes, and the timber starts to crack above you. The body goes to the doors. Every time. The doors did not open. For the first few minutes I told myself they could not hear it yet. Told myself the fire was still along the outside walls, still finding its way in, still just smoke, not yet the thing that smoke announces. I held on to that explanation with both hands. Then the roof caught, and still nothing. No voices, no fists against the wood. No sound of boots on a floor, no weight shifting toward the doors, no breath, no cry, nothing that would tell me there were 18 men in there, doing the thing that every living creature does when it is surrounded by fire, which is try to not be. Reese was next to me. I could feel him shaking, not from cold. He said very quietly, so only I could hear. He said, "James, they are not trying to get out." I did not answer him. I could not. He said, "They are not trying to get out because they do not know they should." That is the thing that has never left me. That is the thing that has haunted every quiet moment of every year between that night and this one. Not the fire, not the orders, not even what I am about to tell you. It is that sentence in Reese's voice, barely above a whisper. They do not know they should. Whatever had happened to those men, whatever they had found or brought back or been exposed to in those mining hills, it had taken from them the most basic thing a person has. Not strength, not will, not even sanity exactly, because sanity implies an understanding of what sanity is. It had taken their awareness of themselves as creatures who could end. They had stopped knowing that they were alive in a way that could stop. I learned more afterward, in pieces, over the following weeks, from men who knew more than I did and were not careful about who was nearby when they talked. The garrison had been called up to the mines 3 weeks prior, one of the independent operations. A 3-man claim about 6 miles into the hills had sent a runner down to Harker's. The runner would not say what had been found. He could barely speak at all by the time he reached the post. The sergeant in charge of the garrison had gone up himself with 4 men to investigate. They found the mine open and the 3 original prospectors inside. The prospectors were sitting, just sitting, in the dark, around whatever they would uncovered at the back of the shaft. Not dead, not injured, sitting and looking at it. The soldiers brought them down, or tried to. The prospectors came without resistance, without acknowledgement, without any indication that they were aware of being moved. They sat where they were placed. They looked in the direction they were turned to face. 2 of the soldiers who would gone up came back the same way. The sergeant sent the runner down to Billings for guidance and isolated the affected men at the post's storage room. But by the following week, more of the garrison had it. And the week after that, it was not half anymore. It was most. The sergeant himself, or whoever was using the sergeant's face and hands by then. Someone had written a report. I do not know who. I never saw it myself, but I was told what it said. I was told that the report used a specific phrase to describe the condition of the men, and that phrase was total psychological surrender. Not madness in the sense of raving or chaos, the opposite, a complete and permanent cessation of resistance to whatever the thing in the mine had put into their heads, total psychological surrender. They were present, their bodies were present, they ate if you put food in their hands, they breathed, their hearts beat. But the part of them that was a person, that wanted things, that was afraid of things, that chose things, that part was simply gone, turned off, like a lantern with no oil, and it spread by exposure. I do not mean like a disease. I do not mean coughing or touching or contaminated water. I mean the act of looking at whatever was in that mine spread it. The prospectors sitting in the dark staring at it, the soldiers who went in to get them, the ones who stayed too long or who looked when they should have looked away, not. Closer to a comprehension, an understanding that, once achieved, could not be undone and could not be made to stay quiet. It moved from mind to mind, the way a fire moves from timber to timber when the conditions are right. I was told the sergeant had tried to describe it in his final report. Before the end, he wrote several drafts, from what I understand. Each one got shorter, like he was losing the ability to find words for it, or like words kept proving insufficient, or like the act of writing it down was itself moving him closer to the place where writing did not matter anymore. The last entry was 2 sentences. I have been told I should not read what I am about to read. I understand why. That is all. 2 sentences, and then nothing. Then 3 days later, the officers on the ridge and the men with oil. The fire took about an hour to do its full work. We stood in our positions. The doors never opened. There was a period, maybe 20 minutes in, when the roof was fully involved, and the heat was reaching us even at 50 yards, when I became aware of a sound from inside. Lo, I cannot describe it well. Not screaming, not crying, nothing you would recognize as a human expression of suffering. A low sound, even in pitch, unchanging, like something ongoing that had been going on for a while, and simply became audible for a moment. As the walls thinned, it stopped. The building stopped shortly after. We rode back to camp in the dark, and nobody spoke. And in the morning, nobody spoke about it. And in the weeks after, nobody spoke about it. And it has been 43 years. And in those 43 years, I have spoken about it. Exactly once, to Aldrich, in a letter I wrote him in 1891. He never wrote back. I heard he died in 1893, natural causes, which is more than I expected of either of us. I said I saw something through the window before the roof collapsed. I've considered not telling you this part. I've considered ending here with fire and the silence and the doors that did not open. That would be enough, would not it? That would be sufficient horror for one night, but you asked me to tell you what happened, and this is what happened. There was one window on the east side of the post, a small one, high up on the wall near the roofline. At some point during the fire, the shutter burned away. I do not know why I was positioned where I could see it. I do not know why I looked up when I did. Maybe I heard the shutter go. Maybe some instinct I cannot account for turned my head at the right moment. For approximately 4 or 5 seconds, I could see into the room through that window. The fire gave plenty of light. I could see clearly. They were standing, all of them, or all of them that I could see in that window's view. They were standing, and they were facing the same direction, not toward the doors, not towards the fire coming through the walls. They were facing the center of the room, facing whatever they had carried down from the mine. I can tell you that it was not large. I can tell you it sat on the floor. I cannot tell you what it was, because I do not have a word for what it was, and I am not certain the words we have would carry the information correctly, even if I tried to use them. There are shapes that the human mind absorbs, and there are shapes that the human mind encounters, and the second category is the thing I saw in that room. And the way I know the difference is that in the 43 years since that night, I have been unable to remember it precisely. I know I saw it. I know my eyes took it in. But when I reach for the specific memory, for the exact image, there is something between me and it, a kind of unwillingness in my own mind. A locked door, I believe that is a mercy. I believe the army made the right decision. I have believed that every day for 43 years, and I will believe it until I die, which cannot be too much longer now. And I want that belief on record somewhere, even if what I'm recording it to is just the empty air, and whoever happens to be listening. They made the right decision. The question I cannot answer, the one I take to bed with me and wake up still holding, is how many times before that night they had already made the same decision. Because those officers on the ridge, the way they sat their horses, the way the men with the oil moved, that was not the first time. Nobody moves through a thing like that the first time with that kind of steadiness. There are mines in Montana I have never visited. There are mines in Nevada, Colorado, in the territories that do not have names yet. The railroad pushed through places where no one had ever been before, and the men on those crews found things, and some of those men came back, and some of them did not, and the ones who came back changed their names sometimes, or moved somewhere far from where they would been, or stopped talking. People talk when they're trying not to say something. I know because I was in those places in the years after. I kept moving. I do not know if I was running or looking or just unable to stop. I took work that put me on the edges of things, near the mines and the camps, the territories where the maps go blank. I never found it again. I did not know if that means I was careful, or if it found other men first and simply had what it needed. I am in Denver now, have been for 6 years. It is a city, people everywhere. I thought the people would help, would be a kind of buffer, a weight of ordinary life pressed against the door of that particular room in my memory. Some nights it helps. Some nights I wake up before dawn, and I lie in the dark, and I think about the sound that building made as the walls thinned, that low, even sound, not a cry, not a plea, just a frequency, like something maintaining itself, like something that knew a building burning around it was a temporary inconvenience at most. Last week I saw a man on the street near the market on Larimer. I do not know how to explain this. He was walking normally, buying things, talking to the vendor, an ordinary man. But the direction his eyes went when there was nothing to look at, the direction they settled when there was nothing particular to settle on. I changed my route home. I have been changing my route home for 43 years. I am tired of it. That is why I am telling you this. Not because I think telling it will make it stop. I do not think anything will make it stop. I am telling you because I am tired, and I am old, and the weight of knowing it and carrying it alone is heavier than it was when I was young and strong. I am telling you so that someone else knows. I am telling you so I do not have to carry it alone until the morning I do not wake up. God help you for listening.